Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for coming to the presentation today. So we're going to be talking about optimizing transits through chakra work, and I'm just going to make my mouse work through here. So we're going to cover the chakras and their correlations to planets and signs through both rulership and exaltation. I want to talk a little bit about Kundalini, the Ida and Pingala channels and the lunar nodes. And then we're going to look at how to use transits to our natal planets to see how they can impact our chakras as well as our outer life, because we all know that the transits are indicating the things that are going on in our life, but what's happening externally is also reflected internally through our chakras. And then we'll look at how to use chakra work as a remedial measure, and also how we can use the transits for optimal times to work with our chakras and access the planetary energies available to us. So I'm going to start with this slide here, which shows all of the chakras, their Sanskrit name and their English name on the left, and then in the middle is the here's all of the symbols for the chakras. So these are the chakra mandalas. So you can actually meditate on these mandalas for the chakras. And then on the right-hand column, we have the planet and the signs of the zodiac that go with the chakras. So you'll notice here Saturn ruling Capricorn and Aquarius belong with the root chakra. And then everything kind of snakes through the zodiac, right? So if we went from Aquarius to Pisces, we'd be at Jupiter in the sacral. To Aries, we'd be at Mars in the solar plexus. To Taurus, Venus in the heart. Gemini, Mercury in the throat. Cancer, the moon in the third eye. Leo, also the moon in the third eye. And then we come Virgo, back to the throat. Libra to the heart, Scorpio, solar plexus, Jupiter, Sagittarius, we're at the sacral, and then Capricorn here again. So the signs of the zodiac snake through the chakras, and it's a perfect setup with the ruling planet of those signs. So this is where we can kind of access the planetary energies within us, is through their energy center in our chakras. Now, one of the things that's really cool when working with your chakras is you can use a pendulum. So if you are familiar with pendulums, one of the first things you want to do when you get a pendulum is make sure that the pendulum responds to you. I mean, a pendulum might catch your eye and you might stand here and hold it over your hand and nothing happens, or it may respond. So to know if your pendulum is responding to you, you kind of want to hold it over your hand here and say which way for yes, and it will tell you. Can you guys see this? And which way for no, and it will tell you. Now, sometimes people get a clockwise for yes, a counterclockwise for no. You might get a yes going vertically and a no going horizontally, you know, or whatever, but it doesn't matter which way the pendulum moves. The thing is how does it move for you so that you can interpret the answer. So you can, like, I have a crazy mix of both, you know, and different pendulums might respond differently. I could pick up a different pendulum and get a left, right, forward, backwards, or a clockwise, counterclockwise. So it just depends on the pendulum and how it's resonating and reading your energy. So you can do this with your chakras. You can literally, like, you know, stand up and hold your pendulum once you know which way is yes, and ask, is my root chakra, sacral chakra, whatever chakra open? And as you hold it there, like here, I'll do a heart chakra. Is it open? We know this is my yes, right? So there we go. How about my throat, right? We're getting the yes answer. Third eye, see how they just, it's in a circle. We're getting a yes answer. And if you have Reiki and you hold it over your crown chakra, it's probably going to go really crazy. So this is one of the reasons that I know that pendulums really work with our chakras, because I had held my pendulum over my crown chakra before my Reiki attunement, and it just moved a little bit. And after my Reiki attunement, oh my God, that thing went crazy. So we really can use pendulums to dowse for the energy of our chakras. Okay. So in addition to that, right, of course, we know Kundalini is moving up and down through our chakras. So this here is again snaking through, and we have the signs, right, moving upward on the left channel and down through the right channel. So the nodes are associated with the Ida and Pingala channels as they're moving the energy up and down. So when we're taking our breaths, our in-breath, our inhalation, which promotes the building of fluids and tissues, is the Rahu channel, because we're moving upward, right? The north node, it's moving up. And then the downward channel as it moves down the spine is on our exhalation, which is K2, which promotes digestion and circulation. So a lot of things with chakra work can literally be placing your hands on the chakra you want to energize and breathe in and out of that chakra. Another awesome thing to do, whether you're, at the beginning of your day, throughout the day, the beginning of chakra work, meditation, anyway, is at any time that you feel kind of off balance or off center, is the alternate nostril breath, which can be called Nadi Shodhanam or Anuloma Villanoma. So that's the one you guys are probably familiar with, that uses your thumb and your ring finger, and you cover one of your nostrils. So if we cover the right nostril, inhale through the left, and then you hold your breath, switch nostrils, and exhale out the other one. So you're breathing, and then you hold with no breath, and then you inhale back through that one, exhale through the other. So each time you're going to inhale through one nostril, hold the inhale, exhale through the other nostril, hold the exhale, breathe back through the one you exhaled from. And this balances your nadis. It balances the left and right energy channels in your body. And various teachings, depending who you read, will tell you to use different counts for different things. The most important thing is to do what's comfortable for you. You never want to hold a breath too long for yourself that starts to make you feel dizzy or lightheaded or anything like that. So it's always important with any of this work that you are checking in with your body and you're doing what's comfortable and what feels right for you. Okay, so things we can do to work with the chakras. All the chakras have a bija mantra, a seed sound. They all have a mudra or a hand position. You can, of course, meditate on the mandala for the chakra, or even the mandala for its associated planet. There are singing bowls for the chakras that you can get. I have like a little travel set of singing bowls. It has all of the little chakras. And these things are little, but they work. Like, so I pulled the yellow one, and this here is the solar plexus. So, if you wanted to work your solar plexus chakra, the seat of the will, for instance, you can just hold these little, so there's all sorts of tools that are readily available for working with the chakras. And of course, you don't even need tools. You can just be sitting with your own energy. There's yoga poses for different chakras. There's herbs, colors, fragrances, gemstones, all of that, and upayas also for the associated planet for any remedial measures that you know. So I put that here specifically to say any remedial measure that you already know for a planet or a chakra, definitely keep that and just use the things that I have today to add to what you already know. And the idea here with any time you're giving a client a remedial measure is to find the remedy of something that they will actually do and something that they can actually afford. For instance, I honestly don't have any clients that I can say get a 1 carat or bigger precious gemstone. So I tend to work with some of the the things that are free, like let's work with our own energy. That's free. You can hold a yoga pose, you can do a mantra, all of that stuff is free. And I think it actually gives better results because you're participating in that action. So just my little 2 cents and what I do based on, the types of clients that I work with. Okay, another thing is that we can also use the exaltations of the planets. Now, any of you that have come from a Western background and have worked with chakras in the Western background will notice that some of these match the rulership, some match the exaltations. So you kind of see where, until I pulled the exaltations in, I kind of thought, geez, why are they saying Mars is associated with the root chakra? That doesn't make any sense. It's Saturn, Capricorn, and Aquarius. And then when I started thinking that, hey, Mars exalts in Capricorn, we think about how creative the sacral chakra is. That's the seat of our creativity. And we think of creativity not only as Jupiter, but also as Venus, right? Our artistic qualities and all of that come through Venus. Well, guess what? Venus exalts in Pisces. So Venus exalts that chakra. And the solar plexus literally has the word of the sun. Well, the sun exalts there, right? So as we go through here, you can see how you wind up with 2 planets, sometimes 3, associated with the various chakras, except for the throat chakra, which is Mercury no matter what. Because Mercury exalts in Virgo, one of the signs that it also rules. So the throat chakra is pure Mercury. The others have a blend of a couple planets, so you can work with different energies, which is helpful, especially when it comes to Saturn and Jupiter, the slower moving transits. If you're waiting for an optimal time, to use some of your creative energy of Jupiter in the sacral chakra, perhaps with your career ruler, well, Jupiter stays in a sign for a year, and it might be a while before it trines your career ruler. Well, guess what? You could use Venus, because Venus is going to go through a lot faster. So sometimes, whether you're using the ruling planet or the exalted planet, depends on which energy is available for you to access. Does that make sense? I'm going to check the little chat. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, all right. So let me move on here. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go through each of the chakras. So I have on the top here your seed sound, your bija mantra, and I have the mudra, and I have the mandala. It might be slightly stretched because I moved this to cover the whole thing. So now each of the chakras have an association with an element, a physical sense, and a color. So when you're working with them, you can work with the element, you can work with the scent, the sense. So for smell, it might be more important to use an incense or an aroma when working with the root chakra because its physical sense is smell, right? And its color is red, so you can use the color of red. And each chakra also has an associated endocrine gland. So this is how it's functioning, in our whole system. And the main themes of the root chakra have to do with survival. This is our root. This is our base, our foundation, right? The root chakra. And this has to do with our ability to feel safe, secure, stable, and grounded. I always think of grounded as a Saturn word. And the material security in the world of, having a roof over our head, having enough money to eat, right? These things that are very survival based have to do with the root chakra. So it's the foundation on which we're building our life, our money, housing, food, all of that stuff. So Saturn rules this chakra, and it's the planet of materials security. And we can hear a lot of these words: foundations, building, grounded, right? Frameworks, things that come, under Saturn words. Well, the emotions that kind of disrupt this chakra are fear, worry, depression, skepticism, and then there's also realism and practicality here with this chakra. And Mars exalts Capricorn, so that means that Mars is like this warrior planet that gives us the courage to overcome the fears and limitations of Saturn. So if you hear people saying things like, if you or a client has some anxiety or general fear around something, around survival and security, if the energy is scattered, if you're having problems with trust, if you're in poor health, if you really feel ungrounded, tied down, or stuck, right? Feeling like you just don't belong anywhere in the world, or, being overly practical or having difficulty letting go. When you hear these kinds of things, you're hearing an impact to the root chakra. So this could mean that maybe someone is having a Saturn transit at the time, or they could be having a difficult transit to their Saturn. Because if there's an imbalance, it's normally coming out of a difficult transit. So you could, of course, do the mantra and the mudra. You could use all these gemstones, all these aromas, the yoga poses, different scale notes for music. So these are the things, right? So, if you need to do something and get moving, right? If you feel like you don't trust or you have anxiety or fear, a really incredibly good pose to do is the warrior. Now you could do warrior 1, 2, or 3, depending on your level of expertise, but that warrior pose really helps to bring in Mars's exaltation there. And of course, mountain helps with grounding, and tree is going to help with balance. So as we move to the sacral chakra, we get water and taste as the element and the physical sense. So sometimes, something you might want to do is have some water involved with this, whether it's, a little Zen fountain or something, that can help. The adrenals rule this chakra. That's the associated endocrine gland, And the main function of the sacral chakra is creativity and procreativity. And its idea is, for us to have pleasure and feel creative, have feelings of abundance and the ability to accept others and new experiences. And geez, what does this sound like? This sounds like Jupiter, right? The abundance and the new experiences. And we hear Venus in the, the pleasure and the ability to accept others, right? Because Venus exalts here in Pisces. So as you hear the words of these chakras, you're hearing the planets as well. So this is kind of like listening astrologically. So Jupiter, of course, rules this chakra. I'm not going to read every single thing because you guys are probably reading while I'm talking. And, Venus exalts here. So if you're hearing signs of imbalance, this can be in your inner dialogue, in a client's words during a reading, in a friend you're speaking to, any kind of sexual dysfunction, being overly sexual, withholding intimacy, any of that, anything with perhaps repressed creativity, feeling emotionally isolated or cold, or overly emotional where everything's getting to you, or difficulty experiencing joy and pleasure, or overly focused on the physical aspect of it. And also guilt shows up in this chakra, and it could be having difficulty with change or changing. So these are the kinds of things you're listening for a sacral chakra imbalance. And so its color is orange, right? So we have all of the orange gems that are associated with this chakra. Orange blossom, that's really good for creativity. That's also really good for, you know, just to help uplift your mood too. Neroli, cardamom, sandalwood. Yoga pose for this, downward dog, cat, wide angled seated forward bend, and the scale note of D. So the next one is your solar plexus chakra, and this color is yellow. The sense is sight, the element is fire. So one of the things for the solar plexus, you know, maybe you want to literally do something, you know, with a fire pit, the sight, the meditating, you know, on the mandala is the sight aspect. The associated endocrine gland for this is the pancreas, regulating our metabolism and insulin. And the main themes of the solar plexus chakra is power and wisdom. This is where our ability to feel confident and in control of our lives comes. So a lot of times when things feel completely out of control or we have no control, there could be an imbalance in our solar plexus chakra. Also, if we're in a state where we feel like if we're not controlling every little thing that happens, something's going to go awry, right? That can also be an imbalance in the solar plexus chakra, because its main function has to do with our own power and control, personal responsibility, our willpower. Confidence, self-esteem, and self-worth come from the ability to direct our willpower. Okay, so Mars, this is associated with Aries and Scorpio. Mars is the ruling planet, and it is the planet of personal power. And the sun exalts the solar plexus chakra, right? It's exalted in Aries, and the sun is the seat of our will, personal power, and self-confidence, right? So we see how Mars and the sun both belong with this chakra and how we can hear all of that. So signs of an imbalance would be if you're listening to someone and they're having like low self-esteem, or a lack of confidence, or they're having difficulty manifesting their desires. Issues with power and control, which happens all the time. Maybe we get in a situation where we feel like we have to give over our power to another, whether it's we're wielding our power or giving it away. Then we're not just owning it as it is, right? So the solar plexus tends to be you know, one that at least I find personally that I have to kind of work with a lot there, you know, to stay in that balance, and knowing, you know, when you're just doing something to help someone or when you're actually giving away your power to them. So remedies for that, we can have the mantra, the mudra, and of course, meditating on the mandala, all the yellow gemstones. We even have a yellow aroma here, right? Lemon, grapefruit, some of these citrusy ones, cardamom again. Some of these aromas go with a couple chakras. And here's your yoga poses: boat, lion, half lord of the fishes, camel. It's usually one that's going to open the area in the body where the chakra is located. And the scale note for that is E. And then when we get up to the heart chakra, we're now in the air element, the sense of touch, and its color is green. Sometimes people throw pink in there, so pink or green, but for the colors of the rainbow going up, it is green. The associated endocrine gland is the thymus. And well, geez, this is our heart chakra. What do we do here with our heart chakra? This is our ability to give and receive love. So, and it's just love in general. Yes, it's love in our relationships, but it's love for fellow humanity, love in general, self-love, love of others, self-acceptance, healing, joy, compassion, inner peace. All of that is at the heart chakra. So here's one where we get 3 planets. We have Venus as the ruler of the sensory desires and pleasures, and who and what we give our heart to, what we find beautiful, all of that. But the moon here in the heart chakra, is the nurturing. How do we nurture ourselves with self-love? How do we give and receive love to others through our moon, right? Where's the emotional piece of it? That comes through the moon. And Saturn exalts in Libra. So we think, wow, how odd. We have Venus and the moon for the heart, but why would we have Saturn here? Well, Saturn is the planet of commitment, constancy, and maturity. So this is what allows the commitment in giving our heart. It all of that stuff, the constancy, the permanence in relationships, right? The maturity that comes from from realizing that you can, give love all over and receive love from all over. So if we hear signs of imbalance for this in your inner dialogue, in a client's words, a friend, family, whatever, you're going to be hearing things about lack of self-love or self-acceptance, having difficulty in relationships, depression, loneliness, grief. Now we're hearing Saturn's things. Lack of compassion, loving too much. I think that means to the point of your own self-detriment, where you have to love yourself as well, not just another. You can't base all of your self-acceptance on receiving it from someone else. That also has to come from within. So the remedies and mantras for this chakra, of course, are the mandala, the seed mantra, the mudra, the green gems, and also the pink ones, the rose quartz, and the pink zircons and tourmalines, along with the emerald, the peridot, malachite, and all those. Aromas, rose, jasmine, lavender, geranium. And cobra poses, yoga poses, cobra, fish, camel, and triangle. Triangle's a huge heart opener. And the scale note for here is F. Now we get to the throat chakra. And we are now in the realm of ether. So we're at the 5th chakra. We have the 5th element and the 5th sense. So we have ether, hearing, and the color blue. And this, of course, has to do with the thyroid gland and our metabolism. So a lot of times if our metabolism is out of whack, we can kind of work with the throat chakra a little bit, for that. Of course, we have to use diet and other things, but, the throat chakra can help with that. The main function of the throat chakra is communication and the ability for authentic self-expression. So we want, and this is how we're communicating our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas, our truths, any way that we are expressing ourselves, and to do it authentically. If you're not speaking your truth and someone's kind of talking you into something and you're not behind it and you're kind of continuing to do it in the world with, communication, and it's not right for you, then that'll help lock your throat chakra. So this is all about authentic and what your truth is. So here we have only Mercury. Mercury exalts in Virgo. It rules Gemini and Virgo, the signs associated here. So this has to do with everything: communication, commerce, exchanges of all kinds, thinking, speech, writing, all of that stuff, which you guys can read without me reading it to you. So when we hear an imbalance here, it might be shyness, an inability to speak up, feeling misunderstood, or the arrogance of having to, be the one who speaks up and on everything, feeling withdrawn or isolated, an inability to communicate ideas, problems expressing your own truth, things like that, being deceptive or manipulative. in your communications can create blockage here. So the remedies, again, we have the mantra, the mudra, the mandala, and we have our blue gems, and we have aromas here, sandalwood, chamomile, coriander, basil, peppermint, and we get bridge, fish, and shoulder stand. So shoulder stand makes sense when we think of Gemini. And the scale note for that is G. Okay, now we are at the third eye chakra, the sixth chakra. So it is our sixth sense. There's no associated element because there are just, 5 Mahabhutas. So this doesn't have an element, but it has the sixth sense. So this is the intuition, the awareness, the psychic part. The color is indigo. It is the pituitary gland, which regulates the prior 5 glands. Just like our sixth sense can regulate some of our other senses. So this is intuition and awareness, the ability to see the bigger picture, imagination, being open to possibilities, having a sense of purpose and direction, that kind of comes from this inner knowing or vision. So here we have 2 signs that are ruled by 2 different planets. So for the first time, the other time all the planets were ruling one planet was ruling the 2 signs associated with each chakra. Well, now we're up at Leo and Cancer where we have the 2 lights ruling the chakra. So of course the sun is the natural Atmakaraka planet of our consciousness and awareness that's ruling our vitality and honor and recognition and all of that stuff. And the moon is the planet of our intuition and imagination. So we're seeing how plugging our intuition and imagination and psychic awareness of the moon into the larger universal consciousness, right, represented by the sun, is what happens here at the third eye chakra. And it even has, the 2 little petals, one for the sun and one for the moon. And of course, a lot of times people think of Jupiter as a planet that also works for our intuition and, raising our level of consciousness. And well, Jupiter exalts in Cancer. It's the visionary planet of our Dharma, right? And out of this comes our sense of purpose and direction. So this is how Jupiter fits into there with the intuition of our right purpose and, believing in our possibilities so we can, do our Dharma despite what others or, the world may say to us at various times. Okay, so signs of imbalance of the Ajna chakra would be just feeling like you don't have any imagination or vision at all, or it could be where everything is imaginary, right? Things can always go both ways. Having trouble seeing the reality because it's too much imagination. Lack of concentration, blocked intuition, being overly reliant on logic and intellect instead of using your intuition, right? That's something that can kind of block or imbalance this chakra. If you're feeling a lack of direction or a lack of clarity of purpose, or you're unable to back up from the situation that you're in and see it in a bigger picture to get a different perspective and why this might be going on, those are times when working with this, with your third eye chakra can really help. So of course we have the remedies again of the mantra, the mudra, the mandala. The gems are, we get sapphire, we're getting the darker blues. Lapis lazuli is a really popular one for this chakra. The dark blue zircon or tourmaline. Whereas with the throat, it was the lighter blues or the turquoisey blues, right? Okay. Aromas with this, rosemary, juniper, thyme, sage, frankincense. Child's pose, lotus pose, easy pose, or any cross-legged pose. And that scale note is A. Okay, right. So now our last chakra is the crown chakra at the top of our head. So it's beyond the elements and the senses. This is our connection to the universal energies. This is the universal energies, enter our head through the crown chakra. So it's beyond the elements and senses. It's even beyond the sixth sense. Its color is violet. This is the pineal gland. So that's the endocrine system piece there, which is regulating our biological and sleep cycles. So if we're having difficulty with sleep, we might need to work with the crown chakra. So the main theme here is higher consciousness and enlightenment. This is the true seat of the sun. While we have the sun and the moon, the sun here at the third eye is like the sun as the observer, in meditation, that's just observing your thoughts, but not latching on, but it's still kind of within you, right? Where the true seat of the sun is the external sun as, deity, whatever goes with the crown. And with this is spirituality, bliss, and the connection to the divine. So, this here is, this is beyond the planets. This is the thousand petaled lotus. It's the transperson, transcendental sun that is timeless and without form. That's the sun at our crown. And when this is imbalanced, we might be very close-minded. We're unopen to signs from the universe, or unopen to things that messages that others have for us as they're crossing our paths, right? We might feel disconnected from spirit. I've heard clients say, I'm in a spiritual dry spell, or things just might seem meaningless, or the opposite. We could have some grandiose sense of meaning to everything. But we can feel alienated, confused. Depression can also happen here, and lack of common sense can also happen with an imbalance of this chakra. So these are the kind of things you're listening for as you're getting messages about the chakras, as you're, going through your day and talking with people or helping people in readings. So the remedies, of course, we have the mandala, the mantra, the mudra, and the gems are your purple ones like amethyst. Also clear quartz, because clear is going to bring in all of the colors, right? Aromas, rosewood, neroli, frankincense. Yoga poses, we have lotus, half lotus, headstand, the top of your head, and shavasana, right? The whole surrender pose, right? And that goes to the note of B. So what I want to look at here now is today's transit. And I have several slides talking about today's transits, because this is the energy that is available to us today. And of course, it's going to plug into each of our charts differently, right? So these are the current transits. I do have both the south and the north view. So which, you can look at the chart you prefer. And what we see here is that Saturn and Jupiter are in Capricorn and Aquarius. So they're sitting at the root chakra area of the chart, right? And then look at this stellium that we have of the Sun, Venus, Rahu, and Mercury in Taurus. And well, where's Taurus? Taurus is at the heart chakra. And we have Mars and the moon in Gemini, and Gemini is the throat chakra, right? So right now it's saying that here's energy automatically to work these three chakras, because these are the 4 signs that are basically populated. We have K2 in Scorpio too, so that's for the solar plexus. So as we're looking at this, we can find connections, between the chakras. So Saturn is in Capricorn. This is totally root. Jupiter can bring a sacral energy to the root chakra sign. So Jupiter in Aquarius is like a sacral root overlay. The sun, right? So the sun being the third eye and also exalting the solar plexus has an overlay with the heart. Venus here, this is an optimal time for working with the heart chakra because we have Venus in its own sign of Taurus, right? So heart chakra energy is, the easiest to work with because we have the planet in its own sign. Mercury, we get an overlay of throat with heart. So how do we want to communicate our feelings, right? This is a good time to work with that because we have Mercury, the planet of communication, and the throat chakra in the sign of the heart chakra. So hopefully this is making sense how we can use this simply just by what overlay is a planet and a sign giving us. How can we connect these chakras? The moon, intuition, with Mercury, the throat, right? Or Gemini, the throat. Mars. So Mars is going to be our solar plexus, or also it exalts the root here in Gemini, connecting with the throat. So just by that, that's one way that we can see how we're using the chakras with each other, because quite often when something's going on in our life, when we're getting a transit, it's not like an isolated incident where this transiting planet is only impacting this one area of life, because the transits are going to cast their glances in several directions and impact several areas of life, several signs, several of our natal planets. And that what that story creates for us externally also creates the ability to work on that internally from the corresponding chakras. So we could also, use aspects. So Saturn here, of course, has been in its own sign since January of 2020. And here, look at this. There's been, you just, look at the world and see that, boy, there's a lot of things about survival, safety, and security going on right now as Saturn sits there. So if you're having those issues personally, through COVID and loss of job or loss of whatever, working with that root chakra can also, try to be a way where you can, as a remedial measure for that Saturn transit, to feel more safe and secure and have your day-to-day survival needs met. Mars exalts the root chakra. So it's been in Gemini since April, where it sees Saturn. Now, I see the aspects better from the diamond chart. So here's our 7/8 aspect here, right? So we see that Mars is aspecting Saturn. Mars is aspecting Capricorn, the sign of the root chakra, right? So when we see that, we know that we have energy available to us to use Mars for this exaltation of the root chakra, right? The timing is right. This is optimal time. When Mars is in Cancer, it's going to oppose Capricorn. It will see the root chakra sign. It will see Saturn, the root chakra planet, right? So we have these windows where it's the optimal time to use Mars to hit that chakra. Right now, we're totally in an optimal time for using the positive sides of Saturn, because Saturn's going to sit here for 2.5 years, right? But as Mars goes through, we get its timing of when that planet gets turned on as being one of the most powerful ones to work with that transit. It's its optimal timing. Now, Mars rules the solar plexus, right? So it's associated with the will, autonomy, power, control, and all of that. So by strengthening the solar plexus, this is how we're going to work with Mars, right? We can also overcome the fears associated with Saturn, right? Because what is the solar plexus? It's our will, it's our self-confidence, right? A lot of that. So as we do that, that can help. And right now, the chakras are connecting through Mars and Saturn because they're in aspect. So this is a really good time to work the root and solar plexus connection through that aspect. It's the optimal timing for strengthening any issues that have to do with both things. Is this making sense? I'm hoping. Okay, so our next mutual aspect with Mars, so if we've missed this window here, where I had from, so we're now until July 2nd, July 20th of 2021, we're going to have Mars either in Gemini or Cancer aspecting this Saturn. Well, let's say that all the work isn't done. Of course, you can do the work anytime, but the next most powerful time is going to be when Mars gets into Libra and casts its fourth aspect to this Saturn. Now, okay, so does that make sense? You're looking for in the timing, if you wanted to do something related to Mars and Saturn. So maybe, let's see, which way would it go? Maybe you have Aries rising and Saturn rules the 10th house, or you have, you know, somehow, or even here with this Cancer rising where you've got, this is the 10th and the 7th, right? And you're wanting to do something to build your career, because Saturn's often associated with the career planet, right? So as you're looking for times to do things, if your chart's saying, hey, Saturn and Mars are the times for me to form a partnership for a career, to start a business, or depending where they rule, how it might be associated with your career, these are the optimal times for starting that thing. And you're going to have even better results if you're really doing the chakra work with that at that time, because you're aligning your own personal energy with the energy of the cosmos to get, you know, more of what you want and what you're trying to do. So any way that you would normally use your transits to advise a client on when the optimal time to do something would be, you can also add in, and if you want a little bit of extra oomph and really want to align your energy with this energy that's available at this time in transits, you know, do the work on those chakras. So Jupiter is going to move into Pisces, you know, next year here. So when Jupiter goes into Pisces, that's of course the optimal time to work with your sacral chakra, or remember, it exalts the third eye, right? So it's the most optimal time to do that. But also once Jupiter moves into Pisces, Saturn is going to cast its third aspect to Jupiter, right? When it moves into Pisces. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So when it does that, Saturn will see Jupiter, and Saturn at the root, it's a more optimistic time. So if some of the things you're feeling with the root chakra are from pessimism, or I can't do this, or I feel very limited, or, you know, any of your self-imposed limitations from false beliefs, those kind of start to fall away and open up when Jupiter gets into Pisces. So that's an optimal time to tell someone to work on that while Jupiter is in Pisces, but Saturn is still in Capricorn. And notice this is a very small window, because right after Jupiter is going to go into Pisces, Saturn's going to go into Aquarius. But this time period here is going to be really powerful for using Jupiter's optimism and truths to overcome some of the self-imposed limitations or limiting beliefs that might be existing at the root chakra. So as we're looking at the transits, we're not only looking at what sign they're in, we're also looking at the aspects that they make to each other, because a benefic planet will, you know, kind of help one of our more difficult malefic planets, right? So as we see that happening, we can use this not only externally in our lives, but with our own energy centers. So just to kind of recap here, we have the most effective timing, of course, is when the transiting planet is in its own or exalted sign, right? That's a no-brainer. We know that that's when planets are at their most powerful. So right now, you know, both Saturn and Venus are in their own signs, because Venus is in Taurus right now and Saturn's in Capricorn. The sun just entered Taurus, so it just left its exalted sign of Aries. So this isn't necessarily the time to work with the sun chakras. We should have been doing that, you know, last month. It doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that you have to, you know, work a little harder, and it's not what the universe is saying we should work on right now also. If you just kind of use the ones where the planets are in their own signs, you'll find that, you know, throughout the year, there's one or several chakras that you can just go through and work with because the energy is most conducive to it. And as you do it that way, you really start to see the themes associated with that planet and that chakra in your life. So we also have transiting energy, the transit to transit aspects that we looked at that's available to everyone, right? That's what's on hand for us all to work with. We kind of did that on the last few slides. And we also have our own personal timing and our own, the way that the transits are affecting our own chakras, and not necessarily in the same way as it's affecting everyone else, because of course we're all having different lives and different things happening to us. And this is coming from the transits to our natal planets, or, you know, our Navamsa planets, or whatever Varga chart is indicative of what's happening in our life right now. So this gives us additional personal time periods to work with things, and it can bring up additional chakra implications for all of us that the collective is not necessarily experiencing. So what we want to pay attention to with this is the same thing we pay attention to anyway. What houses in our natal chart are impacted by a transit we're receiving? So this is going to be the house that the transit is in. So for instance, our house of Capricorn is having the Saturn transit. The houses that are received, but it's going to be a different house, you know, choice of 1 to 12 for all of us, right? It's not all going to be in the same house. And then any planets in that house. So even if it falls in the 3rd house for you and the 3rd house for someone else, you're going to have different planets in that 3rd house, right? We also want to pay attention to the planet that rules that house. So right now, since I use the example of Saturn, of course, Saturn in the house of Capricorn is also ruling that house. But if we were to take Jupiter, for instance, in Aquarius, Jupiter transiting through Aquarius, making its trines to the other air signs of Gemini and Libra, we'd be looking at those 3 houses, planets in there, and we would also be looking at Saturn because it rules the house. Right? So most planets are going to impact 3 areas of life: the house where they're placed and the 2 houses where they rule, with the exception of the sun and moon that only rule 1 house, 1 sign. So pay attention to those, you know, 3 areas of life that that planets rule as we go through here, because this is going to tell you how it's impacting your outer story, and you can also use that for your chakras. So the last thing that I have here is an actual literal example. This is the first client that I realized, wow, this person really needs to work on a specific chakra. And we'll get there through it. So this is the chart that I like to use for my example, and plus they said that I could. I've been using this one for a while. So this is just the transits of the energy, the planets, on August 14th, 2006 at 8:30 p.m. in my time zone where I was. So far, this is not the person's chart. This is the transits of the time. So what we're seeing here, and often, you know, so I like to look at the transits for the time someone schedules an appointment, Because while they may tell me they want to talk about something, or they may tell me nothing, or they may, go on, the consultation chart to me also says, geez, what do they want to know? What energies are coming up in that moment, right? What's rising in that moment? So at that time, there was a Jupiter-Moon opposition. Now this lasts for 2.5 days. It's important to know how fast the planets move by transit. If you're going to look at optimal time and window, you want to know how long is that window open. So if you wanted to do, this is awesome for third eye work, because it's both Jupiter exalts the third eye, and the Moon is the third eye chakra ruler. But it also can connect the heart, because that's where the Moon rules, the chakra that the Moon exalts, and Jupiter also rules, down at the sacral chakra. So it's going to be heart, sacral, and third eye is what this aspect is indicating, plus the signs of Aries and Libra, which are heart and root again. So, we're looking at that. So here's just a real quick aspect. And often the real quick aspects are, this is a huge thing. Because they chose to come in that moment on that 2.5 day window. Any other 2.5 day window, this aspect would not have been there. And then we have Mars Rahu aspect, right? Here's Mars casting its 8th aspect to Rahu. So Mars rules the solar plexus, exalts the root. And Rahu is the upward moving of the energy, right? The upward Kundalini channel. And then, of course, we have this giant stellium of the Sun, Saturn, Mercury, and Venus. Now, we often wind up with the Sun near Mercury and Venus because they can never travel very far from the Sun, right? Mercury can only be in the same sign or one of the neighboring ones, and Venus can only be 2 signs away. Just because of, 28 and 48 degrees is as far as they can be. So we have that going on. So here's a whole bunch of things that we can connect together. We can do a whole bunch of connecting chakra work when we have stelliums. So let's look and see what we think this might be about. So first of all, the ascendant of this, the Lagna, is Aquarius. It's ruled by Saturn. So let's look at this chart. Wow, there's something going on in the 6th house. She's having a 6th house issue of some kind. It could be health. It could be work. It could be enemies. Okay, Mars is the only angular planet. It's the Lord of the 10th in the 7th. So this could have something to do with the relationship with a boss, or, something like that going on at work, right? So this is just detective work. Here's what we're guessing is happening. Here's what's prominent in the moment that this person decided to have her reading. This is what was rising in that moment, right? That's what I'm looking at. So that's huge. And then Mars, of course, is impacting the Lagna. So that's not a very beneficial transit at all, right? You get Mars in the 7th opposing the 1st, probably something not very nice has happened. Okay, so here's her actual problem. What this transit turned out to be is that she had allowed her boss to take credit for her creative work. He promised her, he was trying to get a promotion. Okay, here's the 7th house person, Mars, her boss, trying to get a promotion, and told her that he was gonna, whatever she had, her creative work, he took it, went on to his boss, said that that was his work. She allowed him to do that because he had given her a false promise that he was going to give her his job when he got the promotion. But turns out he didn't have the authority to do that. So he got promoted off her work and creativity, and she got nothing. Okay, so this here we can see in the transit chart of the moment, and we're also going to see these transits to her chart in just a second. So the result here is a root chakra thing of security and mistrust. Participating chakras are the throat. She didn't speak up for herself. There's her voice. She didn't use her voice and say, no, I'm sorry, that's my work. She didn't have the confidence to say, I'm sorry, that's my work, you can't have it, right? So there's your throat and solar plexus chakras right here in the problem. You hear it in her problem. So if we look at this, here's her transits at the time. So first of all, she's running a moon Venus dasha. Okay, so remember here, the moon has to do with the third eye and the heart. Venus has to do with the heart and the sacral. So we are seeing this stuff here having to do with her intuition of following her heart in creative matters. Something inside of her probably told her, don't do that, but she didn't listen. The transiting planets are down here. At this point, I did have to use the diamond chart. I hope that that's okay as we kind of plug these in. But look at what's happening, you know, in her chart to begin with. We have the Aquarius, which was rising in the moment of the transit chart, also happens to be her 6th house, where Ketu is. Right, so here she's had this Mars-like enemy Ketu loss thing that's happened, you know, with her work through the boss in this sense, kind of, you know, being an enemy, with the 6th house being of enemies. And then we have Mars is in Leo, so Mars is in Leo here, and Saturn is in Cancer here. Right, so Saturn's aspecting her ascendant. It's making its 3rd aspect to her ascendant. Mars in Leo is making its 8th aspect to her Mars. So we have Mars Rahu and Saturn Rahu are things that are indicating her giving away her power and also believing false claims. And you see that she has Saturn and Mars are kind of squaring each other, and Rahu is aspecting Saturn by its trine aspect. Okay, so as we look at this, transit Saturn in her 11th, aspecting her 1st house, aspecting her 5th house of creativity, aspecting her 8th house of crisis, where Venus sits. Venus being the Subdasha or Bhukti Lord, right, in the sign of Mars. So we see those transits there that she was having, and we might think, you know, well, what kind of things can we do here? Obviously here, Venus, we want to pay attention to Venus ruling Taurus. It's her Subdasha Lord, and in Taurus sits Mercury and the Sun. Mercury by transit is kind of sitting here in Cancer, so it's not aspecting anything at the time, you know, unless you count Uranus. But so what kind of remedies are we going to say? Well, first of all, we know she didn't speak up for herself. We know there is a Mercury throat chakra issue to help her find and use her voice. We know that there might be a solar plexus or heart chakra issue. We see Venus as her Subdasha. We see that it was aspected by Saturn, right, for her confidence and self-love. We know that we might need to have a connection between her sacral and solar plexus so that she can be confident with her creativity. Instead of giving away the power in her solar plexus, she would own it and assume it for herself. We may want to do the connection between the solar plexus and the throat to give her confidence to speak up for herself. No, you can't pass off your work, my work, as yours. The root chakra is going to be a biggie to work with trust, because, you know, when something like this happens to you, you obviously are going to have difficulties with trust going forward. And then also the connection from the root and heart for healing and be able to trust again. So as we look at this, we want to say, well, geez, that's a whole bunch of remedies. There's a whole bunch of things we can do. God, isn't that a bit much? Let's just work on all the chakras. Well, what we want to do at that point is say, which ones say, work me now? That's what we want to do. We want to use the aspects available to say which ones we should do now. So if we're looking at the Mercury one, Saturn and Mercury are together in Cancer. So instead of giving her voice away to an authority, instead of limiting her own voice, it kind of seems like this is the problem, not the solution. She didn't speak up for herself. She allowed someone to take her voice, her creative voice, and pass it along as their own. She gave away her voice. So that's probably the problem, not a solution, right? You have to use critical thinking with this. Is this the problem or the solution? So while they were together in Cancer, that was the problem. This is what got her passed up. So it's going to be easier to work with this, to work with her throat chakra once Mercury moves into Leo and is no longer associated with Saturn. Now, when Mercury would go into Virgo, it's going to be in its own sign. So it's going to be very powerful for working with that. But from Cancer to Virgo is a third aspect. So Saturn is still going to be aspecting it. So this is a powerful time to work that transit, but you're also going to catch yourself when you're allowing that limitation to come in. That's the optimal time for working with that and catching Saturn in action, because Saturn would aspect that Mercury in Virgo while it's in Cancer. Make sense? I hope. All right. Solar plexus, heart chakra for confidence and self-love. Well, transiting Saturn at the time is conjunct Venus at the time of, her reading here. So she could begin working with that immediately. Working with bringing the energy from the solar plexus up, to the heart, and bringing the heart energy into the solar plexus, really kind of connecting those two, to foster the self-love and the confidence. And the connection between the sacral and the solar plexus for confidence with her own creativity, being confident enough to say, no, this is mine. I did this and I'm confident about it. I don't need to have it hide behind someone else's name, right? So this part, the timing isn't there yet. She'd have to wait a few months until Mars get into Leo and aspects Jupiter and Libra, right? You kind of want to wait for, do this in a few months. You look in your ephemeris or use an animated wheel on your software or whatever you do, and you wait for the aspect, to come into being. Because at the time, let me see what, okay. Or if that's going to take too long, or if you want several windows of opportunities, Venus exalts the sacral chakra. And it was currently at the time of the transits in Cancer. And we wanted to aspect Mars in Leo. So you probably just would have to wait a month for Venus in Cancer to get to Venus in Leo. But the problem is at the time of the reading, Mars was at the very end of Leo and would go into the next sign before Venus got there. So again, you have to use your ephemeris or animated software to see when they will aspect. Because like here with the Mars that was in Leo, it's not aspecting Jupiter and Libra at the time, but when Mars gets to Libra, when Venus and Mars get to Libra. So you're going to have, with the slower transits, longer periods of time to work with something, but with the faster ones, you'll have quick little pockets in between. So there's always, between the fast and slow moving transits, optimal times that you can take advantage of, where the energy is supporting the chakra work that you're doing. Not that it doesn't support it any other time, but it's just like you're aligned with it, you're attuned with it. What you're doing is attuning to the energy available now and choosing to work on that. So you're attuning yourself with the energy available, which is easier for the work with the chakras than when you're trying to do it at a time where there's no resonance by transits. You can still do it, it's just not as easy. So this is the easiest path, is using the right timing. The connection between the solar plexus and the throat, we want the sun and Mercury to conjoin, which, you know, happens quite often. It was happening at the time, so you could definitely work on that in the moment. So this allows you to prioritize the transits that you're doing. The Saturn Rahu transit can help move that stuck energy at the root chakra upward. That was happening at the time, the Saturn Rahu conjunction. So it could help that stuckness there to move upward and have more trust in things. And Saturn was aspecting her Venus at the time, remember? So there's 2.5 years she's got, because transit Saturn was aspecting her natal Venus, of being able to work on that root heart connection. So looking at the transits allows you to prioritize, okay, here's your little program, work on this during this time, work on that during that time. And then that, doing the optimal things at the optimal time for the best and easiest results. So I hope that that made sense. I'm sorry I went a titch over an hour, but I did want to give you guys those examples. So does anybody have any questions?
This is a good time for questions. In order for her to answer them, go ahead and type into the chat so that I can be reading and feeding them to her. I'm going to start with a question, because sometimes we see different associations of different colors and chakras. So for like our students in 101 and 102 learn the color green associated with Mercury in the ancient traditions. So if somebody's confused about that, what would you be wanting to tell them?
Oh, so, well, that's a good thing, right? Because Mercury is associated with the color green, right? And so there's a difference of, well, there's a difference and a similarity of working Mercury in the throat chakra. So you can use, you could use green also for working with Mercury, if the specific throat, right, is the communication, or you could use the blue of the throat. And you know, who's to say if, you know, part of the green of working with the throat also, I think, really helps to bring the heart into the throat to communicate your heart, your truth, your everything about the heart chakra. So you can use the color of the planet, you can use the mandala of the planet, or you can use the color of the chakra or in the mandala of the chakra. The thing is when you're sitting there presented with a choice of two things, don't use your intellectual mind to say, geez, which color is better for me. Go into it with your intuition and feel which one is better for you at that time, the blue throat color or the green Mercury color. I would say, rather than putting a line in the sand, use your intuition and what feels right in each situation.
Yes, well, thank you, Julene. Do we have any other questions right now? If not, I've got. I was just going to comment on a little story from my practice. During the 2008-2010 period, lots of people were having financial difficulties, and I had this one very nice client I was working with, and it looked as though Mercury would be helpful for her. Not only her throat chakra issues, but just simply finding the next dollar. And so I said, looks like it's Wednesday. It looks like it's Mercury stuff. Wednesday, you know, she started growing sprouts on the windowsill. She did have, you know, semi-precious stones. So she got the Mercury things out, and she went job searching on Wednesday and found a job as a running a senior center that had a garden, community garden, and she was the only one applied for the position, and it didn't last forever, but it was that transition. So as I say, it's like you're going to look, not you once you study, then you're going to be looking at a lot of things in these ancient lists that are associated with these chakras, with these days, with the foods, with the flavors, all of these things, as and taking advantage of what you have in your environment. So it's a wonderful tradition and a wonderful idea. Thank you.
And thank you so much for bringing up the days of the week, because that's great, because then you can pick a different one every day, to work on, or the most powerful day in the period.
We're going to be having some excellent lectures coming up in the next month. Starting the 29th, we'll be having an Ayurveda, Introduction to Ayurveda series of lectures by Dr. J. Kolifkanan, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I may not be, who's faculty of an Ayurvedic school, and there'll be 4 lectures on 4 Saturdays over the next few months. So be paying attention to your email. You'll get details. And I'm going to be available on the email line if anybody who has questions about courses at ACFA. As registrar, I'll respond in the email pretty quickly in the next few hours if you wish to send me a line.
Awesome. Thanks, Lynn.